We need to stop treating patients as if they were quote unquote fools and give them much more participation. I believe that for me, this is the way that works best to generate adherence. I really tell them what is happening. Hey, look, this is what is happening. For example, I told a patient, he says to me, hey, look, I want to start working with you on nutrition, but I'm not going to exercise. So I told him, hey, look, thank you very much for trusting me. It fills me with pride that you want us to work together. I believe we should always be grateful. In the end, people are putting their health in your hands. And I tell him, but I can't work with you if you don't train. And I explain to him, hey, look, in the end, some toxins are stored in fat. If we start a hypocaloric diet or create a meal plan that makes you lose weight, those toxins will enter your bloodstream and you will have health repercussions. Well, it could give you a headache or it could manifest in any way. So I practically told him, hey, look, this is how it's going to happen. And first I have health and then everything else. So since I believe it's not a way of working that generates health, I can't work with you. Then he told me directly, hey, it's okay. I'm going to make an effort and we'll manage both things at the same time. I'm going to start training and we'll work on nutrition. This way, yes, this way. But it's the fact of stopping treating people as if they don't understand, stopping giving a closed diet because it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Do they need me to explain it to them? They need me to dedicate time and for them to see the sense of it, okay? In the end, we are a person who has the same reasoning as you. I have trained in health and they may have trained in mechanics or engineering or other aspects. So there is a tissue inflammatory response, which consists of 4 steps that seem super, super, super interesting to me. In the end, technology, you see super cool technology in other sectors, but in reality, you start studying physiology and say, well, that technology they have developed is ultimately what happens in our body. And that is tremendously rewarding to know that, well, the complexity is within ourselves, in our body, before it reaches robots and other things. So this 4-step model will go through the first step. Imagine that we do. Let's always put an example because it's intimate. Let's say we are, I don't know, bodybuilders. Okay. For example, they work isolated muscles. Easier. And we are going to have a leg day where we are going to exercise, well, quadriceps, hamstrings, and everything that surrounds the core. We are going to work on that. And that is exclusive training. We are going to give our stimulus. We are going to do, I don't know how many sets. I don't know how many groups. I can't tell you. I can't say something more or less logical because I'm not trained, but we are going to put in our training. We are going to put in our stimulus, and that training is going to be effective. We are going to do very well. So what happens when we finish the training? Let's say that there is always damage. The damage we had seen at the neural level, at the myocyte level, at the depletion of reserves. Therefore, there will be damage. There will be acute damage, which is positive because it is acute, not chronic. So since that damage is acute, there will be a molecular activation of some components that we call selectins or adhesion molecules. Specifically, they are called L-selectin, P-selectin, and S-selectin. What are these adhesion molecules going to do? It's very simple. They will mark the area we have trained. They will go to the endothelium. They will go to the blood vessels surrounding that muscle, and it will be marked. It's if little legs were coming out of it. Imagine that this is the blood vessel. They are proteins anchoring in the membrane of the blood vessel. So when an immune cell passes by, it knows where to stop. Okay. In the end, if we didn't know, well, we secrete immune cells throughout our body, but they won't stop anywhere. They target thanks to these adhesion molecules or this selectin, okay? Therefore, as I put there, for everyone, the protected is marked at the molecular level. We mark our quadriceps, our hamstring, so that immune cells can reach there and act on the damaged areas, okay? I hope it's clear. If not, I'll explain it again without any problem. Therefore, let's move on to the next step. There is a triggering of signals that increase leukocyte integrins. This is very complicated. I mean, just reading it seems very complicated, but it makes perfect sense. Look, we not only generate in the blood vessel those proteins that will trap immune cells, but immune cells through, for example, cytokines, which we said were chemical messengers that go from one part of the body to another, will receive the signal to, for example, imagine an immune cell that is going socios through the arm, okay? That goes through the arm. Well, it will receive the signal that there is a site that is damaged, so that immune cell will secrete another protein called integrin, which will come out of its membrane So we have the immune cell, and from its membrane, another protein will come out that when it communicates with the one that comes out of the marked blood vessels, they will bind, they will hook together. Look, I mark it in the image. This is the immune cell. This is the integrin. And this is a cell, for example, from the endothelium of the blood vessels with its selectin, the VCAM1. So this cell generates specific cytokines that arrive here, that go through the bloodstream and reach the immune cells, or reach, for example, the spleen, or reach the bone tissue. And what they do is that these organs that produce immune cells release these cells, but already with integrins in their membrane, which makes a binding. When they meet in the blood vessel, they make a binding. It's incredible, but well. Therefore, step number 2 facilitates the adhesion of white blood cells in the damaged areas. We, after the training, are going to mobilize a large part of our immune cells to the damaged area, 2009, so that they start working on that structural imbalance that has been created through the stimulus. Let's move on to step number 3, immobilization of neutrophils on the surface of the vascular endothelium, through tight adhesion via integrin, which I was telling you about, but a bit more complicated. It is these integrins with selectin that will bind after the message from the cytokines, so that in the bloodstream, through all the blood vessels surrounding the musculature, they will start to join. This is step 3, where we immobilize the immune cells where we are interested. And step number 4 is the transmigration, through the endothelium to the sites of tension. In other words, we have the immune cells in our bloodstream, but we need them to enter to reach where the damage is. Therefore, as you can see in the photo, when there is inflammation, in this case because it has been punctured with a splinter, but in the case of a rupture, a micro-rupture of muscle, it happens the same. Immune cells can pass inside, aided by proteins called matrix metalloproteinases, MMP. So these MMP help the immune cells that have stuck to the endothelium to move to the damaged areas. Is it more or less clear? Well, we have just seen inflammation, or the first phase of inflammation in a moment, and it is one of the most complicated processes to understand. Apart from pain and these things that I have only set out to read, okay. So congratulations, you have taken one more step. So, who regulates the inflammatory response? You can more or less guess it from everything we have discussed in both previous classes and today. And here you have below both this one and this one. You have some structures that look like proteins. And it is these specific cytokines or chemokines that are responsible for controlling the immune population. It is the signals we send from one place to another that will tell us this is more serious, this is less serious, this needs to go, this needs to generate integrins to bind to the selectin. It is what will communicate with us through the bloodstream in a very, very effective way. Thus, there are 2 very important factors in inflammation. One is tumor necrosis factor, which you will see in papers as TNF-alpha, which is a very important pro-inflammatory cytokine that serves as immune control and as a mediator of other aspects of inflammation. Okay, you will probably read many more papers. Maybe if you start reading about diabetes, atherosclerosis, it will be present in any inflammatory process. Tumor necrosis factor will be there. Okay, and there is another very important one. It is transforming growth factor beta-1, which you will see as TGF beta-1, which influences both positively and negatively in the processes of inflammation and repair. You will understand this with a slide that comes later, don't worry. So any anomaly in the dysregulation of these factors, that is having too much. TGF-alpha, or excuse me, let me see if I remember, TNF-alpha, or having excessive secretion of TGF-beta, will positively or negatively regulate the immune response, which can lead to abnormalities and persist over time. Well, in the end, everyone knows about low-grade chronic inflammation, silent inflammation, which is like the origin of 21st century pathology. Well, here we have a prolonged dysregulation of cytokines over time, leading to that